We are live.
Thank you, Steve. So I'll now call to order this City of Brantford Special City Council meeting. Mr. Clerk, would you please confirm the roll has been taken or taken?
Through the chair, roll call's been taken.
All right. Members, does anybody have a pecuniary interest they need to declare regarding any item that's on the agenda for this afternoon? Please physically raise your hand. Seeing no raised hands, doesn't look like we have any conflicts, so we'll move right into presentation delegations, and we do have one delegation for this afternoon's agenda. So I'll now ask Kim Baker to come forward, Executive Director of SOARS, Katie Curtis, Senior Director of Services, and Derek Tachak? Yeah, Senior Director of Operations, all three representing SOAR Community Services. And you do have 10 minutes to speak to this matter, or 10 minutes to answer any questions. Did you want to make an opening comment?
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Good afternoon. And we don't have a formal presentation to make, but we're looking forward to answering your questions about the Heart Hub application that is before you today.
So members, as you know, if you've read the material, this has to do with the Homeless and Addiction Recovery Treatment Hub proposal that is being made to the province. And the application does require a signature from our Housing Services Manager, Mary Masson. And so that's why it's before us for a resolution before you is that Mary be directed to provide the endorsement if we believe that's appropriate. So with that in mind, Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd really appreciate an overview, just a brief overview of the project from you folks. You can read it, but it's better to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the Homelessness and Addictions Recovery Treatment Hub proposal is part of a response from the Ministry of Health to address issues of complex homelessness and substance use within communities across the province. We are applying for the proposal. It is a 3-year demonstration project that begins next fiscal year. However, there's startup and early implementation costs allocated to this fiscal year. The expectation from the Ministry of Health is that these projects would be up and running in winter of 2025. What we are proposing is a significant enhancement to services related to individuals experiencing homelessness and addictions in our community. This includes 48 new housing placements, which is a combination of supportive housing and post bed-based addiction treatment transitional housing within our community. We're also forming a team, interdisciplinary team of staff crossing many functions, including nursing, peer support, counseling, case management, system navigation, shelter diversion, and creating a single umbrella location for that team to operate. Additionally, that team will have the fluidity to be able to follow clients, people accessing service across the continuum. In addition to the interdisciplinary hub team, we're also augmenting some existing services in the community and really paying attention to transition points where a lot of complex folks tend to get lost. So for example, we'll augment and bridge specifically with the Rapid Access Addictions Medicine Clinic, the Rapid Addiction Support Team that exists within the emergency department and inpatient at Brant Community Healthcare System. We're specifically partnering with our Indigenous service providers, so Dade Wattadesnes, Brantford Native Housing, and BRISC are partners in the proposal to ensure that the percentage of this population who identify as Indigenous receive cultural specific supports and services. Sorry, in addition, we're also augmenting our bed-based treatment services here in the community. So we're adding an additional withdrawal management bed and an additional bed-based treatment service bed that will be accessed directly from the Heart Hub.
If I could carry on, then thanks, Mr. Mayor. We certainly need something like this going on in our community because the problem just gets bigger and bigger. It doesn't seem to alleviate itself at all. It just it's continuing to grow, and this sounds like something that would help stem that tide. It's certainly needed in our community. So
you have a question?
do you see this going on beyond the 3-year pilot program? Is this something that maybe informally that they've suggested to you, or how? Have they indicated to you that it will go on longer should it prove successful?
We haven't had a direct or explicit indication of that. However, there's certainly conversation in the province around this being becoming operational and scaling up to other locations in the province. Right now, they're implementing 19 heart hubs, 9 of which are earmarked specifically for communities that have a safe consumption and treatment site that is going to be closing at the end of this fiscal year. So we're putting forward a proposal sort of competing for one of 10 across the province. There's certainly an expectation from the Ministry of Health that there's significant evaluation of this demonstration project, and pending the results of that, there's some indication that there will be a scale up and some sustainability attached to this. I think that's always the challenge with, pilot or demonstration projects. And, we speak to sustainability within our proposal, although it's very difficult to sustain the significant investment without that resource. We would certainly endeavor to look for other sources of funding. And I think regardless of funding, there's some residual benefit in terms of the collaboration and clinical pathways that we will be able to forge during this demonstration period.
Is there anything else that the city can do to enhance your success rate other than just signing something? Is there anything else the city can do?
Well, frankly, the city has already been a key partner in developing this proposal. It really leverages the investment that you made within our service most recently around emergency shelter intake and housing resource center. So we're going to augment some of that. They've seen a really high volume of clients, and this will help us to leverage that investment that you've already made, including expanding in-person access to emergency shelter intake to 24/7, 365 days a year.
Great. Okay, we'll go to
Good luck.
Councillor Martin now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a bit of a movement to set up involuntary treatment. Would this facility be able to accommodate that kind of treatment if those rules change and that becomes something that's an option?
Well, I think a lot of the discussion around involuntary treatment is related to bed-based services. And the predominant service delivery format within the Heart Hub proposal is outpatient or community-based.
How many beds will you have there if you're successful?
So we only have the capacity to add 2 more beds in the community. We have it's logistical facility constraints. So we already have 7 withdrawal management beds and 21 treatment beds within this community. We'd be adding an additional withdrawal management bed and an additional treatment bed that would be earmarked for clients coming through the hub, so that there's limited wait for them.
The other locations, are any of them suitable for doing involuntary treatment or?
Not at this time.
Not? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carpenter.
Enough time. Thank you. So what we're talking about here is through addiction treatment, and then to make sure there's supportive housing that goes along with addiction treatment. Okay, because everything I've read says that the failure rate is high if you don't have stable housing. So this is the concept here, is to have more success rate with addiction treatment by having wraparound services and housing. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I think the focus here is not just on attaining housing, but housing retention. And housing retention is related to those wraparound supports.
Is part of the
for,
program having those that went through the treatment process and into housing to support back in a way to support part of the treatment of others?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So is there a way for those that went through addiction treatment, for example, then now have housing? Is there a way for them to volunteer back to addiction treatment themselves so they can say to others, this is the experience I've had? It's always helpful to have an addict talk to another addict, or a recovered addict talk to an addict, sorry.
I think it's definitely helpful for individuals who are in recovery from substance use issues to share their experiences with others. I think that can be very illuminating and provide a lot of hope in terms of other people's recovery trajectory. We have peer support staffing model built within our programs now, but also within the Heart Hub. And we currently facilitate peer groups, which are intended to have folks who are in the recovery to share those experiences with others.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
All right, we're coming up on 10 minutes. Three counselors have been able to ask questions. We have at least three more that would like to ask questions. Anybody want to move an extension? Counselor Samuel, would like to move it. How many more minutes? 10 minutes or seconder? Second by Counselor Sullivan. Any discussion on that? Okay, take the vote, please.
The motion to extend the delegation time to an additional 10 minutes carries unanimously on recorded votes.
Thank you. Counselor McCurry, you're next for questions.
Thank you for that, Mayor. Welcome, folks. Thanks for coming today. As Councilor Celeste said, it's good to hear it in person. So the funding will all come from the provincial government. Is it one ministry or is it the compendium of a number of ministries? Do you know that?
The funding is Ministry of Health funding specifically.
Okay, okay. And Councilor Martin talked about the voluntariness, that's even a word, of people participating in this program, and it's all voluntary, correct? There won't be any court orders or remands to this program.
Well, there are externally imposed sanctions sometimes on our client population. Our services are voluntary, and
Right.
we use some evidence-based approaches to leverage that external motivation and have folks want to come and see us.
And God bless the ministry for tight timeframes. But it does cause one to concentrate on deadlines, which is a good thing. Can you tell me what valuable input you had from the Brant County Health Unit?
Yes, I have presented our Heart Hub proposal at a number of tables, including the executive leadership group of the Ontario Health Team, where the Brant County Health Unit is a partner, as well as through our Mental Health and Addiction Steering Committee of the Ontario Health Team. And we held a separate dialogue with partners that included the Brant County Health Unit. And I do have a letter of endorsement and support from them to include with our proposal.
So you do have a support letter from Health Unit. Okay, good show. Thank you very much. Those are, oh, I know the other thing I meant to ask. Brantford always seems to hog these opportunities within the geographic boundaries of our community. Is there an opportunity for us to allow people in the county to receive some of these treatments in their home communities?
Yes, I think that's one of the benefits of this model. Although we're creating a one-stop shop, if you will, for support, there's also fluidity for the interdisciplinary hub team to follow people where they go. And that can include outreach into their community, into their home.
Okay, well, let's hope we're fortunate enough to win. Thank you.
Counselor Van Tilburg, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I have my question is, you have amalgamated a bunch of existing groups to the hub. Are there any new groups that you're adding, or is that planned within the 3 years of the pilot?
When you say groups, you're referring to
Partners.
service providers? Yep. So Grand River Community Health Center, Brant Community Healthcare System, Datewada Desnes, Brantford Native Housing, Brisk, and ourselves will be delivering on-site service at the hub, which is something that does not exist presently. And that's very intentional in terms of culturally appropriate care provided to Indigenous people by Indigenous people. But it's also really important because those providers have the inroads into existing services like RAM and emergency department. So we want to mitigate people attending those services for these issues.
So what makes it different through the hub versus the individual setup that currently exists?
The individual setup that currently exists does not have the capacity to provide the optimal level of care coordination. Simply put, people fall away in transitions, and this would create the circumstances where people don't transition.
All right, and you've suggested that you're adding overall 2 beds because there's constraints in existing facilities. Do you believe we need more beds for these kind of treatments? Greater facilities?
I believe that this community could benefit from additional withdrawal management beds. Yes, one limitation.
I'm sorry, would that be enough to treat the willing, let alone?
Well, Counselor Van Tilburg, can you allow her to finish answering the question?
Yes, in my enthusiasm, I get ahead of myself.
I think for withdrawal management beds specifically, it's really helpful if those are available when a person needs it. Right now, the average wait time is 7 days, and 7 days can feel like a lifetime when you're looking for that type of service. So I think our community, based on our service utilization data, could definitely use more withdrawal management beds. Unfortunately, part of the challenge with this proposal was services must be up and running by winter 2025, and there's limitations on capital investment. If we had more time, and there weren't those limitations, we certainly could have looked to other facilities for that. Right now, we're adding what we can, which is 1 additional bed earmarked for clients who come through the Heart Hub, and the wraparound services. So hopefully people attend once and are supported on the next steps of their journey.
So once you successfully land the hub, would you see future growth in more beds for treatment for those that are seeking it and shorter wait times? And
Yes,
how many might you think we might need for this community?
well, I think if the data through the Heart Hub implementation still demonstrates the need, we would absolutely advocate for that. It's difficult to articulate how many beds we need because bed-based services, publicly funded addictions, bed-based services are a provincial resource. So we can and are obligated to serve people also from outside of the community, although the vast majority of people who access our service are local. Again, I think withdrawal management beds generally would be my focus for bed expansion as opposed to treatment.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand that this program is definitely needed. It's a long time coming. I too am of the opinion that it needs to be a broader scope, but in your opinion, what can we do to ensure that this is effective? Not necessarily for the hub, its process itself, but after treatment. Because the big fear is that everybody's always going back into the life they knew and falling right back and becoming repeat customers. What do we got to do to make sure that that doesn't happen?
I think if, we broaden our notion of what treatment is. Treatment doesn't just occur in beds, in a bed-based program. That is a starting line, but not the finish line. So I think what the Heart Hub does is gives us the staff team to walk alongside somebody when they're coming out of addictions treatment to continue that treatment and support in a really fulsome, coordinated way that doesn't exist presently due to capacity limitations.
Thanks for the clarification.
Kim, I've got a question for you, and there's a lot of different pathways into the treatment system we currently have in our community. It could be somebody's approached by an outreach worker. It could be somebody that just attends at SOARS. They want and need some kind of treatment. It could be somebody in the emergency department and they're referred, or it could be a referral from a doctor. So my question for you then is, we've just heard from sort of a 10,000 foot viewpoint looking down what the changes will be in the system. Can we go the other way? And for the person that wants treatment, that realizes they have a substance use issue and they want to do something about it, or they're being referred or encouraged to deal with their issues, how will this system look different from that person's perspective? And will it be an improvement over what they're currently faced with?
I think the Heart Hub will expand the concept of a no wrong door approach. And I think that because of the scope of the Heart Hub interdisciplinary team and what they can do for folks, it will really draw folks into that Heart Hub. And from there, they don't need to navigate alone. They have the interdisciplinary hub team and significant resources around case management to support their connection, and not just support with a referral, but actively support. Go with them too, walk them through, come while they're there, walk back out with them, and keep them connected to all those services. And that is different than what exists now.
And so for those that actually enter into the system or will with a treatment hub, what will be different for them? How will it be better and an improvement over what we currently have for them?
A broader range of functions will be available to them. So expansion of nurse practitioner resources, nursing staff, peer support staff, significantly more case management. Currently in this community, there's a 0.5 FTE funded for addictions case management. That is it, which is wholly insufficient in terms of helping people with multiple complex needs navigate a system of care. So it will be fundamentally different for those reasons.
So once they're past the initial detox, initial phase of treatment, they're going to have possibly more housing options, supportive housing, more assistance from a caseworker, social worker. What other additional supports will they have that will assist them in making the path to recovery that
This
they don't
also-
have now?
This also includes embedded vocational or employment supports, which will be a really important aspect of, post-stabilization for someone in terms of, rejoining and being productive in the community.
Councilor McCurry, you raised your hand a second time?
Indeed, I did. Thank you, Mayor. One final question for you. Do I understand correctly that when this program begins, that will be the end of the dispensation of drug paraphernalia or clean things that folks can use to put dope into their bodies?
There is an expectation that heart hubs do not distribute harm reduction supplies. So no harm reduction supplies will be distributed at the heart hub specifically, but it is not the end of harm reduction services in the community.
So you'll still continue to provide them at Elgin Street, do you think?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right, so we've hit 20 minutes. So if we can now move into an actual discussion of the resolution, we have a proposed, Councilor Samuel, did you want to ask a question?
No, I was putting my hand
Okay,
up for the
so
next
you're
part.
You're moving the resolution, Mr. Clerk, if you could please put that up on the screen for the viewer, and second by Councilor Carpenter. And so I don't normally do this, but I'll lead off the comments, but really by way of a question, and a question for our housing director, Mary Musson. Mary, I assume that you're quite content to sign the letter of endorsement. And I assume the answer to that's probably yes, otherwise you wouldn't have brought this report to us. My question to you is why? And what is the city's involvement? And what will it be in this treatment hub?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Mary Musson, Senior Director of Community Services and Social Development through the Mayor. I am quite pleased to provide my endorsement as the service manager for this application to the Heart Hub by SOAR Community Services. SOAR Community Services has been a very great partner to the city as part of our coordinated access system. They are already providing services through the Housing Resource Center as well as the Emergency Shelter Intake Line. They are also very active in the coordinated encampment outreach that the city has coordinated with multiple providers in the city. So having this Heart Hub application, if successful, will just expand the ability to collaborate together in bringing much needed services to both the city and the county.
So the floor is open for discussion. Okay, I'm gonna go Councilor Samuel first.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to say that I was thrilled to see this come across for us to review this report and to consider having the endorsement tonight. What this means to our community is we'll finally have true wraparound services, which we have not had in the past. And so I'm looking forward to having folks be able to have someone walk alongside them, holding their hand every step of the way and making sure that they receive the services that they need. I also wanted just to highlight that I'm very excited to see the 24/7 access to showers and to laundry and bathrooms and all of those types of things, as well as the shelter intake, because I think that when you need those services, you need them then, not sometime down the line. And I also just wanted to mention that I know we've talked a lot about the 2 beds tonight, but also with the 48 new placements, that actually includes 12 post-addiction beds, which is going to be really crucial for our community. So with the interdisciplinary team, as well as all of the other things that you're providing, I'm really thrilled to support this tonight because it's going to have such an impact on our community. And I look forward to seeing a positive result from your application. Thank you.
Councilor Carpenter, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd say congratulations to the government for listening, because I know this is a pilot, but this really is the right direction. And members of council have heard me talk about this quite a bit. certainly the CEO has as well. When we talked about Foxbridge, I was thinking a treatment center, room for an apartment building at the back, because everything I read said treatment is not successful, very rarely successful if there's no housing attached to it. The individual after treatment ends up going back to wherever their last friends were or whatever couch they were on, and the drugs are right there. Addiction is, it's a lifetime of recovering. Once you're an addict for life, and you have to be a non-addict for life. You have to work at it for life on a regular part. It have to become part of your regular living, just like alcoholism or any other addiction. So I appreciate the wraparound services. I'm hoping that this will lead to an actual new treatment center with housing attached to it, so that the services are right there on site. And then the individuals that want to volunteer, they can come in in the treatment center and say, yeah, Richard, I know what you're doing. Richard, what's happening there? I've been there. This is what I've experienced too. And encouragement. And it keeps those that are fighting their addiction to stay clean, keep clean as well. That's part of their therapy. And I'm glad you've got wraparound services for work as well. That's fantastic, because there's lots of employment. We just need to get people employment, make them feel good about themselves. And it takes a lot to be an addict. Sometimes people aren't even addicted to drugs until they're homeless. And then the pain of homelessness brings them to addiction. So there's a lot of work here to be done. Everything I've read says this is the right thing to do. I've read for a long time. Without the final wraparound service and housing, it just doesn't work. And even then, you might save 7 out of 10, but saving them as opposed to just treating them and then seeing them again is futile and very much be frustrating for those working in the industry. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for stepping forward here. And hopefully this will lead to a full-time project, a location, and maybe a new build or rebuild another building, and we can actually move this to a full real treatment center for all of Brant County and the city of Brantford. We need one in this area. We're a growing city. So thank you again for everything you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next, Councillor Schloss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd too like to say thank you to you folks. You're doing the hard work that people don't often see. They just see the result, but somebody has to be out there and be the grunt labor to make sure that all of these things happen. And you've taken on that role, and you should be congratulated for that. It's unfortunate that it's been limited to, I think you said 10 communities outside of the safe injection sites, which are closing. And then it's unfortunate, because I think every community in Ontario and in Canada needs this type of service in their community. So the odds are probably stacked against us. I don't know. I'm an optimist, but there's a lot of communities in Ontario that are crying for this. I hope we have a stellar application. If Mary's involved, I know it's going to be very, very good. I hope it's successful. There isn't a day goes by that as a counselor we receive calls from people that are concerned and complaining about the activities that go on that don't need to, if we have proper facilities to treat people and make them whole again. So good luck. We'll hold our breath. I'm not sure. I can't remember the date of the announcing of who's successful, but it's not going to be very far away if you've got to be operational in winter of 25, because this feels like it's already here outside. So it's close. So good luck. I'm sure you've got 12 people rooting for you here.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
We're going to get this hub. In fact, this city needs this hub more than anything, and we're in competition with a lot of cities to get the hub. But I can already tell by the organizations that are before us and have put together an incredible presentation. What this represents is, after years and years of not just our city, but many cities saying we're missing the boat here. We're in a massive opioid and addiction and homeless and mental health crisis. Something's got to be done. And this is the first step that I have seen in a change in direction. One, well needed. I consider this just to be a foothold onto the problem. But this is the start. This is the start we need. Prior to this, and I've had many conversations with Mayor Davis, and he is well aware that we were failing. We were falling. You could see it. Everyone could see it. But we couldn't do it. We didn't have the tools. This is going to provide the groundwork, the tools the logistics, particularly the logistics. If you ever heard anything, it would be about people falling through the cracks, going back to where they were from, missing that 7 days opportunity to get into a bed if they required it. It just wasn't there. It just wasn't happening. And the few would get through. And that's not enough, not in the midst of this opioid crisis that we've been facing. So like I said, after what I would say many years of frustration, I almost call it my whole second term, this is the most positive change in direction. I do agree with what's been said that every municipality needs this kind of support. But at least we're organized and ready to apply and get it. I want to see this grow into exactly what's needed. Even though it's all right, it's still at the level of a Band-Aid when we have a gaping wound. There's a lot to do on the city's part. I think it's all out there. I think that's why we're all enthusiastic on where this will land. But I tell you, if you were to ask me 4 or 5 months ago, I didn't see this happening. I didn't see this coming. And to see this come down, be accepted as the future on how we deal with these issues, leaving no one behind you've got to be ready. You've got to be ready when somebody says, I need help and I need it now. We've seen those failures. They have been on the front pages of our newspapers. Families' hearts have been broken because of cracks in the system. And again, this is just a start, and I am so happy that I'll be voting for this. And I'm sure this is going to be, I say 12 votes. Right? Well, I think it was 11 of us, but if that gets us a baker's dozen, we'll have at it.
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments. First of all, I think we're so fortunate that we have SOARs in our community because think about this. I mean, the announcement was made by the province they were going to do this in mid-August at the Association of Municipalities Conference. The actual application process was sort of opened up and the application forms were all ready to go right around Labor Day. And the deadline for submitting an application is, I think it's October the 18th. So that's like 6 to 7 weeks. And you can imagine that I think the reason why they've done that is because they realize that a number of communities will want to do this, but just would not be able to put together an application in 6 to 7 weeks. But that's also because they want these programs up and running by February. So they want communities that are ready to respond quickly and efficiently. And are we lucky that we had SOARs? SOARs was right they were on the starting line, ready to burst out of the starting block before the government even announced this program. They realized this was likely going to happen. They're ready to do it. And it's amazing, I think, that they've been able to put this together with the other stakeholders, the Grand River Community Health Center and the others, including our own social services department. And, I think about this application and like it makes me feel proud of our community and the people we have in our community and the organizations, because not just that we've been able to put together an application so quickly, but think about it from the perspective of the person that's struggling with an opioid addiction. And the current system is there, but there are issues with it. We know there are issues with it. And the end result of this will be they'll have more simplified what are called those entry points into receiving treatment. Once they're into that, into indicating they want treatment, they're going to receive treatment faster. They're going to receive treatment that's more effective and suited to their particular needs. And then once they're through the initial phase of treatment, they're going to have those supports that will make it critical they stay on the path to recovery. Whether that's employment, whether it's housing, whether it's just having a social worker, caseworker helping them deal with life's issues, whether it's they need help or assistance in respect to other life issues or medical issues. They're going to have it now with this treatment hub. Hopefully it's approved in a much better, more effective way than what we currently see. And, all overseeing the lead organization, SOARs, that they've shown over the last 50 years, they have the ability to oversee very complex and difficult programs that involve many partners. So they work great, very collaboratively. you know, as I said, we're so lucky to have SOARS doing this application, submitting in a timely way. And then I say to our social service department, in particular, our housing department, wow, Lucy Marco residents that was announced last week, there are up to, I think it's 7 or 8 units are going to be available for SOARS so that people who are coming through the treatment hub system, if it's awarded to us, will have the accommodation and the supports in place. Well, is that ever fortuitous that these programs have come together, hopefully together, that we've been working on here at the city and our staff in terms of, and the county, in terms of expanding the support of housing that we have in our community. It's a gathering together of a lot of positive forces that I'm hoping will change the course of many lives in our community. And I pray that our treatment hub is successful. I can't think any reason why it shouldn't be. And I know that many of us will be lobbying very aggressively and effectively to see that we're receiving this treatment hub because we desperately need it. And we're a community that's ready for it and can do it. Right? So, Councilor McCurry.
As my old friend Larry would say, you're doing the Lord's work here. So there's a lot of other problems that force people into addiction, and largely they're, I guess, at the feet of the federal government for their inaction on a number of files to dealing with imported drugs from overseas, criminal justice system, which turns folks back onto the street to resume their old habits rather than mandating that they get treatment. But having said that, I think we could all hope for the best that someday we'll work ourselves out of a job. Let's pray for that as well. Again, thank you very much, and we look forward to being successful. And I'm sure the mayor will be having a discussion with folks at Queen's Park to ensure that our application rises to the top as cream does on milk.
All right, with that, I'll call the vote.
Item 3.1 carries unanimously on recorded votes.
So thank you very much for coming today and delegating to us and answering lots of questions. And as I said, it's a great day, I think, in our community. So now we'll move into, we don't have any notices of motion, but we do have some bylaws. And if I can get a mover and seconder for first and second reading of the bylaws, so I can get someone, so Councillor Carpenter moving it, Councillor Sullivan seconding it, and Councillor Carpenter, can you read please the resolution for first and second reading?
Whereas the Corporation City of Brantford is the owner of a property municipality known as one, oh, that's not the right one. That's the second bylaw, sorry. Just a minute here. Not coming up. Oh, it's on the screen anyway, so we'll read that one, sorry. Leave be given the mover and seconder to introduce the following bylaws first and second reading. Bylaws to approve the sale of lands that may be known as I was on the right one. 102 Wellington Street, City of Brantford, May 9th, special city council, June 13, 2023. 136 bylaw 2024 being a bylaw authorized executing agreements individually dated and listed on Schedule A attached here to purchase the sale of 102 Wellington Street, City of Brantford. 137 224 being about to confirm the proceedings of Council Corporate City of Brantford with respect to special council meeting held on October 15, 2024.
All right, does anybody want any of the three bylaws separated for discussion purposes? Councilor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. As this is the first time this has been before us in a formal fashion, could we get staff to give us a brief overview of the process and future of this sale of the second city hall in Brantford's history?
So you're asking we separate bylaw 135 and 136?
I don't care about separating it, just like.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll separate those two because they deal with what in fact you've asked for. So that leaves 137. So I'd ask the clerk if you please take the vote on 137, which is essentially to confirm what we just dealt with in respect to the treatment hub.
First and second reading of bylaw 137 carries unanimously on recorded votes.
All right, Mr. Hutchings, can you answer the question, please?
Hello, my name is Brian Hutchings. I'm the city CEO. This property involved is 100 Wellington Street, which is, as Councilman Curry has mentioned, the second city hall or the old city hall, as well as 102, the current provincial offenses courts. Property sale of approximately $5.2 million. The purchaser, the sale will be approved if council approves this today. It's been negotiated for the last number of months. The purchaser is a person who owns property on which surrounded by Wellington, Queen, Darling, and King, which is where the current courthouse is. And he's had a couple public meetings where they're looking to create three phases of condos. The third phase will be the courthouse, and they'll be ripping down the current courthouse. He's looking to build a new courthouse, which our MAG, Ministry of Attorney General, has looked at our old city hall, determined it would make a very nice courthouse. He would like to renovate it and work a arrangement to move the courthouse over to the old city hall. And people know that the POA court will be moving down to 1 Market Street. And if you actually go down and look at an old map, 1852 lithograph map, you'll see 3 squares. You'll see Market Square. You'll see a public square, which is where Victoria Park sits. And you'll see a courthouse square, which is where the courthouse was and where a courthouse was planned to be, which would fit very nicely back to 1852. The court is intended to be new facilities created at the old city hall. It is the Ontario Court of Justice as administered by the Ministry of Attorney General, as I mentioned. This is the criminal/family court currently at 44 Queen Street. They're looking to move over. It is not the Superior Court of Justice or the POA office, but the plan will be to have the court there right across the Superior Courts and close by the POA courts, which will almost make it like the court squares planned in 1852. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Slaus.
Does the sale include the parking lot?
Yes, it does, Councilor Sluss.
Thank you.
So if I understand correctly, the company the corporation that is going to be purchasing what we call Old City Hall, they currently are the landlord leasing to the Ministry of the Attorney General, the Ontario Court of Justice, which is kitty corner from New City Hall.
You're correct.
All right. And so what they intend to do is purchase Old City Hall, convert that into a Ontario Court of Justice, which the Ministry of the Attorney General has already said they think would make an excellent courthouse. And then they would enter into a lease arrangement with the Ministry of the Attorney General for the new location of the Ontario Court of Justice.
Correct.
All right. And are there any conditions, like, for example, if they're not successful over a certain period of time in negotiating a new lease arrangement with the Attorney General, what rights do we have?
If the purchaser has not been successful in 20 months to convert 100 Wellington into a courthouse to be operated by MAG, the city will be in a situation to purchase back the property if they're not happy at that point in time, to purchase it back for the cost we're selling it for in 20 months.
So I think, frankly, this is very exciting as a lawyer who's quite familiar with the current Ontario Court of Justice, which is completely and totally inadequate for our community. Probably was the day it opened. This is taking Old City Hall, which I think it has the physically imposing presence of a courthouse and probably is one of the highest and best uses of that property. It clearly has far more square footage than the current location, and I think is far better suited to being a courthouse than the current location, kitty corner from our current building here. So this is, I think this is for those that are involved in the court system, the administration of justice, which is an important, basic, foundational institution of our society, that this will be a much better courthouse. It will be much more efficient. Will probably lead to cases being tried more quickly. Would also likely allow for a unified family court, a better GLADU court, hopefully a diversion court for drug treatment, because there'll be space in Old City Hall for these kinds of programs that currently don't have in the current location. So it'd be a much improved access to justice, a much improved justice system, and putting what is an excellent building. It's got excellent bones. It's a pretty solid building. and making sure that it continues to be a building that serves a public purpose for our community. Yes, Councillor Carpenter.
Yes, I saw that building as a courthouse the day we moved out of it. It made sense that the courthouse would be right across the street from the federal courthouse. Makes a lot of sense. What doesn't make a lot of sense, though, is for the province to be paying to a private sector individual the profit to rent court space when they could have paid it to us. So federal provincial taxes going to municipal government would have made a lot more sense as far as government money being spent on government. But at the end of the day, I guess for the private sector, they'll charge more, but they will also be paying taxes because they'll be owned by a private sector individual. And if they redevelop the current location where the courthouse is, if they develop in, I guess, into condos, we'll get some more tax money there as well. But logically, it would have made the most sense would have been if the Attorney General simply said, of course, this makes sense to have a courthouse there, and we'll be involved in that process. And they could have joined us with us to make it a city-owned building that the revenue flowed back to the taxpayers. Would have been ideal. But this is still a good project and a good process. We're still going to end up with the courthouse where it should be. All in one location with all the courthouses together makes a lot of sense. And unless he's going to start charging for parking for people going to court on a regular basis and start generating that revenue as well. And then people are trying to, jurors, people on jury duty have to pay for parking for jury duty now. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but there was ways to make this work. And I think this is an opportunity that I will support. Thank you.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you too. So when we had this discussion of the sale of the property, can you just refresh my memory? What are we actually doing with this money and what reserve are we going to put it to?
You, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Caputo, this money, this 5.2 million will go to the housing reserve for Mary and team to build more affordable housing in our community.
Fantastic. I was hoping you'd say that.
Councillor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. Can you refresh my memory? Does the province have an obligation to this landowner to provide a court facility into the future?
The province right now has, this landowner has a 5-year lease that's renewable for another 5 and another 5. So that's why we approached, we knew this owner, we knew that he was looking at developing, and that's why they would have more flexibility to move Old City Hall and extend that lease on the Old City Hall.
So that's why we didn't enter into discussions with the province to provide a courthouse, because it would be 5 or 10 or 15 years into the future.
We started with that conversation with the province and realized the lease was 5 to 15 years with the current landowner. And so then we approached the current landowner.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Yeah, and I was involved in that, and part of the advantage to having the landlord do it is that what happens is it rolls into the province's operating budget and the Attorney General, whereas to build a new court, turn it into a courthouse owned by the Attorney General, it's in their capital budgets. And right now they have severely they have so many demands on their capital budget that unfortunately courthouses don't seem to be at the top of their list. It seems that it's more highways, hospitals, and housing that is getting the province's capital monies. But anyways, it's no matter how you do it, so long as we get a new courthouse and we make good use of Old City Hall, it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. So I think we can all agree on that. So I'll call the vote then on first and second reading of 135 and 136.
First and second reading of bylaws 135, 136 carries unanimously on recorded votes.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder for the third and final reading of the bylaw? Moved by Councillor Caputo, seconded by Councillor Martin. I assume nobody wants it separated for discussion purposes, any of the three, and I'll call the vote on third reading of the 3 bylaws.
The third reading of all bylaws carries unanimously on recorded votes.
All right, that means we're now adjourned and we'll be reconvening at 6 p.m. as Committee of the Whole with